Guys, good morning. Okay. So we started with the concepts of role hierarchy yesterday, and just a moment. Yeah. So we created different roles. If I go with manage users and make a click on roles, we can see that this is the structure of organization that we created in the yesterday's session. So, and we do have assigned this all these positions, what we have created, all these roles, we do have assigned them to different users as well, right? So now you can see the users also have roles among them. Now there is one common confusion about the role hierarchy. It is something for example, let me take this as let's consider that any of the user, maybe like CTO. If the CTO user would create a record, right? Let me make a login into this user's account. So I go with the CTO user and I'll make a login over here. Now, what I'm trying to describe you, if this user or any one of them, I could take any one of them. I'm just taking this as an example. So this user CTO would create a record, all right, inside any of the object, So now, as you can see, I'm into the user's development and I go to, let's consider account object. And inside the account object, I would be creating a new record. Let's say that development user record number 1. So this is what the record I have been creating, right? With few more entities, like the type of account is prospect and the industry is banking. The annual revenue is 10 lakh. Rating is hot. This is my phone number. This is the fax number. This is the website, ownership. And with all these details, and the active status is yes, customer priority is high, SLA agreement is gold, upsell opportunity maybe, and save it. Now, what we are looking into is an account record which is being created by the user development. All right. Chalo. So if this user would create a record, in an ideal circumstances, what should happen? In an ideal circumstances, what should happen? This record should be visible to him and to his manager. Now, when considering CTO, who is the manager of the CTO? CTO is actually a subordinate. He's a subordinate of whom? To the CEO. When we consider CTO, CFO, and COO, see, all of these three positions, they used to report a person called CEO. So internally, CFO, COO, and CTO, they are siblings to each other. These positions are not derived between, I mean, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि COO, CFO के नीचे है या CTO, CEO के नीचे है. Rather, all three of them are the subordinates of CEO. Among themselves, they are siblings to each other. When we talk about vice president is a position which actually is a subordinate to CTO, because that is derived, that is being created under CTO. This position, team lead, it's under vice president. This position SSE is under this, right? So basically, in an ideal circumstances, what should happen if a record is being created, let's consider by this user, that should be visible to him and to his manager. Who's manager? The manager is CEO. But this record should ideally not be visible to any another user. Maybe that user is a sibling, or maybe that user is a subordinate user. That should That should be happening in ideal circumstances. Now, people usually have one confusion over here. Just give me 1 minute. Yes. Now, people usually have a confusion over here. What I have seen is, when you define a role hierarchy, we start thinking like, if, I mean, what would going to happen that, for example, if this user would create a record, that record would be ideally it should be visible to him and everyone who is above in the hierarchy, but by default that record would not going to be visible to someone who is lower in the position, is lower in the hierarchy. Let's consider that if the CTO user would create a record, you know that is not going to visible to VP and team lead and a senior software engineer. Why? Because they are lower in the hierarchy. Whereas with this user would create a record would automatically going to visible to someone who is above in the hierarchy. Now these two are not above in the hierarchy, rather they enjoy the same priority, the same position. Someone who is above in the hierarchy is CEO. So there's a common confusion. You try to relate the concepts of record visibility. You try to relate the concepts of the record visibility with the role hierarchy. But these two, let me make it very clear. These two are absolutely different, and they have no, interconnection. They have nothing in common in between them. Role hierarchy, what we have studied and what we are studying right now as well, is something else. This is just about defining different positions of an organization, assigning or arranging them in the hierarchy, that which position is the subordinate to somebody, to another position, or maybe that's a sibling or whatever. For example, I could say that I have created all these positions, right? All of these positions we have created, and we also have defined their hierarchy, where this position is going to stand. That is the first part of role hierarchy. The second is to assign users to a particular role. So that is what does it do, the role hierarchy. But it has nothing, it has nothing to be done with the concepts of record visibility. All right. Now, I would be taking one use case wherein you have seen that I have created one record. I go to the user development, and here inside the account object, I have created this record. I now wanted to check this record, which is being created by the development user, is actually visible to whom. Now, see, once again, last time I'm repeating, in an ideal circumstances, this record should be visible to the development user because he's the owner of that record, and to his manager. But that record should not be visible to the CFO, to CEO, because they are siblings, and to all of these users. So why? Because they are the subordinates. In an ideal circumstances, this should happen, right? But let's now verify this. First of all, see whether the record is visible to this user or not. Yes, he can see this record. Not just see, he can access, he can do everything. Why? Because he is actually an owner of, who is the owner of this record? User development is the owner. And so he can do everything. He can edit, he can delete, and whatever he want, he can just perform all of those operations. Why this record? Does it goes to the approval process? Yes. See, whenever a record has been submitted, because we design an approval process, and fortunately, this record matches the conditions over the approval process. So it was being submitted automatically. So whenever a record has been submitted for the approval, it becomes logged, as you can see. All right, it becomes logged. That's the reason. That's the reason I see this icon over here, because that has been submitted for the approval and it was approved. Anyways, chaliye. So That would not going to affect in any case what we are learning right now. Now, so this record has been created by the development user, and so he can see the record. Now, let me log out from here. Now, in an ideal circumstances, a record which is being created by this or this or this or by anybody who this record, for example, now is being created by the CTO user, should be visible to CEO. Now, who is CEO, by the way? If you go back and you will see who is CEO. It is that training batch user, the admin user. All right. So I would this record should be get visible to, I mean, it should ideally in ideal circumstances, it should be visible to this user. So I go inside the account and I'll go with all accounts. And I try to find out a record called development user record number 1. Somewhere around over here, it should be. Yes. I don't know why it's not being filtered out, but yeah, you can see that this record, you can see that this record is visible. This record is visible to the admin, to the CEO, right? That should happen, and this is happening. Now see, one more thing, if you have observed, admin have this right to unlock the record. In the approval process, admin can unlock the record even though it has been submitted for the approval, right? This is not available with any another user. The admin can do this. तो चलो आपने दो चीजें सीख ली आज, fortunately. इत्तेफाक से चलिए. So this record which was being created by the development user, he could see that, and he could see because he is actually the owner of that record. Now, apart from that, his manager, who is the manager in hierarchy? Who is the manager? The CTO. To CTO, the manager is CEO. And the CEO could also access the record. As you can see this record, I'm now into the login of admin. And inside the admin, we can see this record is accessible now. All right. Now let's go and try with some other possibilities. Now what should happen? The record should not be visible to CFO, manager user, should not also be visible to the testing. I'll also have to verify this. So I'm going back to the setup menu and I'm going with the users. And I know that this record should not be visible to the manager. So I'll go with the login of manager. I'll just make a login over there. I go with account object and I go with, let's say, all accounts. And I would check it over here. In an ideal circumstances, the record should not be visible to him. But as you can see, the record by default is available. It's available. It's available for the manager user. Manager user can also access this record. He could also access this record, but that should not happen. But it's happening. All right. Let me try with some another user as well. So there's one more user who is actually sibling to CTO is COO, and this one is testing user. So I'll go with the testing user. I'll make a login onto this. Same process I'm going to repeat. I go with account and I click on all accounts. And then also I could see the development users record number 1 that is available to the testing user as well. All right. Ideally, this should not happen, but this is happening. Why this is happening? We are going to discuss that as well. Don't worry. I can teach you everything. All right. I'm going to teach you everything. Now, so our conclusion is like this user creates a record, is available with this, is available with this, and even this. Okay, let's not talk about the one who's actually subordinate. All right. So I cannot make a login into integration and security user, but at least I could make a login to the vice president because that's a custom user you created. Now I'll go with VP, and that's a subordinate. So I'll go with customer user. Yes, I'll make a login into the customer user's account. And let's check whether subordinate could also access, because I have seen that managers and siblings, they are having the access. What about the subordinate? Now you can see subordinate also could have the access, right? So it is something like, now see, user development record number 1 is accessible to everyone. So it is something like the record which is being created by this user, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe any one of them is actually accessible to everyone, is actually accessible to everyone. So now it is first thing, point number one, it is proved that record hierarchy doesn't have anything to do with the record accessibility. Role hierarchy, sorry, what I'm saying. Role hierarchy has nothing to do with the record accessibility. Role hierarchy just give you an idea about how many different positions we have, how they are arranged one after another, and what are the different users, who are the different users, or how to assign the users to a particular role, to a particular designations, to a particular position. That is what does it means. But it has nothing to do with the record accessibility. To do this, we are going to learn something, another topic called as OWD, Organization Wide Defaults. All right. So that is going to be a very important topic. That's going to be a very important topic. So the first thing to clear over here is like role hierarchy doesn't provide you uh, any restriction on the record accessibility. In a default case, if a user would create a record, that is visible to everybody. And we proved this. I could try this with any another user. You can do one thing was like, if you wanted to replicate with some another user, try with like, go with vice president or go with COO or go with CFO, any of this. I replicate this with CTO. You can do this with any another users as well. Just go and make a login with anyone's account and create a record inside an object, maybe like account or contact or something. And then try to see whether that record of this user is being accessible to him, to his manager, or to everyone. You will going to find that. You will going to find that it's actually being accessible to everybody. Now, why this is happening? Why this is happening? Let's now talk about that. Let's now talk about that. Why it is happening. Understand. When we say you go to an object and create a record over there, let me recreate this everything. Whatever, I have started today morning. Once again, I'm repeating. And this time you would observe. You observe this. I go to development users login, and then I go with the account object. Inside the account object, I have created a record. This record, if I would ask you, is a record of what object, you will going to say me, although it has been created by this user, but this record belongs to account. It's an account record. It's an account record. All right. If I would replicate the same thing, if I would go to the contact and I would create a record over here, if I would create a record, which actually has been created because we are having one rule. I mean, I think we created a process builder. Okay, whenever a new account record would be created related to that account, one contact should also get created. And that is the reason you can see one contact also has been created. Now, this record of contact, what is this record? This record is a record of contact. All right. Now, let me log out from here. I would just require to refresh this, nothing else. So, what we understand, if a user creates a record inside an object, I replicated this with account and contact. If a user creates a record inside an object, what is happening right now? Let's consider that we are talking about account object. If a user creates a record inside account object, what is happening right now? That record is actually accessible with every another user. That record is available with all of the users. So why this is happening? So first of all, this is happening, whatever is happening, that has nothing to do with the role hierarchy. You would have to check something called as OWD, Organization Wide Defaults. What is an OWD? I think I have one diagram. Let me try to see for this. I think I have it. This one. See, what is an OWD? Understand. I'll come to this, how many options are there and everything, but what basically is an OWD and what it is, what does it provide? See, this, you know that Salesforce have so many different objects, standard one and the customs, what you create. Now, understand, every object have provide you a certain settings by which you can control the accessibility. What does it mean? So let me try to simplify this once again. See, for every object, there is a setting in Salesforce. There is something in Salesforce that would decide whether the records of this object, they are being accessible in what way. Yeah, it is something like, for example, this is a set of objects. All right, this is a set of objects. For every object, let's consider these are separate buildings, or maybe separate whatever to say. Now there is a guard standing in front of the gate of this building, or maybe this room, whatever. And for every object, there is a separate guard. There is a separate security personnel for every gate. I mean, you go to airport, there are maybe like, I mean, with some big airports like New Delhi or the Mumbai, they are having so many gates, all right. But for every gate, there is someone who's standing, all right. So it's something like, for every object, somebody is standing in front of the object, and this security personnel would going to decide who can access the records inside the object. If, for example, your account object is having, let's say, 100 records, this is having 200 records, 300 records, or whatever. Who can access this? Who can access this? The records of the object. Who can access? This is something which is decided by a person, a security person, which is standing in front of the gate of every object. Now, this security person is called as OWD, organization-wide defaults. You will going to understand there are 9 different options. There are 9 different options of OWD. You're going to learn this. Okay? So let's consider, see, we are having all these users. है ना, हमारे पास में CEO है, we are having CFO, manager, and all these users we are having. Who can exactly access this account record or contact record? This is something, you know, we have to decide this in OWD. So OWD would provide certain settings. Understand now. OWD provides certain settings to the accessibility of the records inside an object. If there is and one more thing, for every object, there is a separate OWD settings you can write. So OWD works at object level. OWD works at object level. Now see, understand, I'm going to discuss this soon or later. There are 5 different levels of securities in Salesforce. There are 5 different levels of securities in Salesforce. The first level of security is application level. Actually, organization level, sorry. The first level of security is organization level security. You will be going to understand what are the components that works under organization level security. Login hours policy, session settings, session timeout. These are something at the organization level security. Password management. Below to organization level security, there is something called as an application level security. Second level of security is application. What works under application? You're going to see that profiles, permission sets. Below the application level security, there is something called as object level security. Object level. So object level security, the most important parameter of having an object, of establishing, of creating an object level security is OWD. Because OWD would decide. OWD is always created on the object level, by the way. It's a component of object level security. OWD would decide who can access the records of this object, up to what extent. By OWD, we would be creating those settings. Either the record is going to be accessible to everyone. That option is called as public. But there are bifurcations into that: public read only, public read write, public read write transfer. But the access is called as public. OWD would going to decide whether everyone can access. The option is called as OWD as public. Or restricted the access. That access is called as private. There is something called as no access. Nobody can access. View only. You will going to learn. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm just trying to describe the concepts. So basically, the object level security is always achieved with OWD. And there are a few more levels below to this. There is field level security. Field level security. And below to field level security, I just forgot what is there. Bhul gaya yaar main. Record level security, yes. Before the field level, there's record level security. So there are 5 different levels of securities. ये भी देखेंगे हम, एक टॉपिक आएगा, कोई ना कोई टॉपिक जरूर आएगा इसके लिए. But object level security is something which is always achieved by OWD. OWD. And there are few more things like permission set is also there. Profiles also work at this level. So object level security is achieved with 3 to 4 components. The most important component over there is OWD. Apart from OWD, there are few more things which helps you out to achieve the object level security. Those are permission sets and profiles as well work at this level. Profile तो almost हर जगह काम करता है. कुछ एक दो चीजों को छोड़ के बाकी हर जगह profiles आपको मिल ही जाएगा. देखेंगे, वो भी देखेंगे. So OWD क्या है? First of all, you could consider OWD as a security personnel which is standing in front of an object and which would going to decide who is going to have an access to the records of this object and who would not be permitted to have the access. This is something what does OWD actually do. Okay? This was just an introduction. Now by tomorrow morning, I'm going to start these all 9 options we're going to discuss and how to see that, how to remember that, how to learn. That is what something we are going to have a discussion on this. All right. So tomorrow morning, again, we're going to start with the same topic, and that is OWD. But let me finish one more thing, one small thing, grant access using hierarchies. Let me think. Abhi batana hai ki baad mein batana hai. I'll take this in tomorrow's discussion. Kal hi leta hu main isko. What does it mean by the grant access using hierarchies? I'll just take it by tomorrow. ठीक है. That's all for today. I'm giving you this command. Now you can unmute yourself if you want. Any questions?
Sir,
Yes.
I just wanted to clear the confusion. You said the user development account, what we created, that must not be visible from any other user, right? But it was visible.
Yeah. That is what I was trying to say. Ideally,
So,
this should not happen, but this is happening. So why it is happening, we are going to have a discussion on this. Okay, what is the reason why everyone is having the access on account record? We're going to see this.
but sir, account object is like a custom, standard object. Na? So whatever records we created in that object, everyone must see.
No. It's always
Earlier
is.
session we discussed, right?
I see. Understand one thing. Though the object is whatever the object could be, whether it's in standard, it's a custom, that's not an. It's all about like how the business want to implement this. I mean, for example, if you create a record inside one object and you wanted to have the privacy of record, right? If a record inside any of the object, if you have created, for example, there is an object which is accessible to multiple users, but at the same time, what we want is like If somebody would create a record, that should be visible to only few people, maybe you, to your manager, or to somebody else. You decide, you're going to decide that. But that should ideally not visible to everyone. Now, this is what it's a business call. And in other case, it would also be a case where we certainly don't want it to have any restriction, and whatever you are creating should be, or whatever I'm creating should be visible to everybody. That is again a business call. So what I'm trying to make you understand, in a default case, what is the default behavior of Salesforce is like when you create a record, it's actually visible to everybody. And why this is happening, that I'm going to tell you tomorrow morning. But you have seen this. One user creates a record, that ideal is visible with every one of them. Now, why this is
Yes.
happening? First thing, that's a default behavior of Salesforce. And why this is the default, why this is the default behavior, we're going to discuss this. But then, is it possible that we could put certain restrictions on this so that we could maintain the privacy of record? Is it possible? Yes, that is also possible. So this is, understand, there are two views into this. One, you wanted the record to open for everybody, which actually is a default behavior. It's happening right now. Or second, I wanted to restrict the accessibility of this. I mean, I would going to decide that this record should be visible to him and to not. So in both of the circumstances, you would find that Salesforce provide a solution for this. Understand? That is what we are going to learn right now.
Okay. Fine, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Any another question? All right then. Thank you so much for joining.